Hey everybody, welcome back to the internet again today. So I've been wanting to sort of switch this channel up a little bit over time as I'm getting kind of just bored of just reading a bunch of stories every day. So I'm just going to be starting to add little things here and there over time. Today I saw someone post this sign saying, if you are grouchy, irritable, or just plain mean, there will be a $100 charge for putting up with you. And there's going to be a few people in these stories that are going to wish they had this sign up. So this first one's from Entitled Parents saying, 10 coupons that are 2 for 1 means free. So this was back around, let's say 5 years ago. I was working the entryway to this theme park in my city. I don't know if it's just in Canada where you have to pay to get into a theme park, but that's what we do here. Then when you're inside, you pay for whatever rides, games, or food you want. So in my booth we have 4 people, plus the supervisor behind us in case stuff goes down. So along comes these kids who give me 10 coupons that are 2 for 1. They're all excited, so I'm doing computer stuff and putting the coupons in the right section. So the computer spits out the final touch, which is around 200, I believe. One of the kids says, huh? I say, $200, please. He says, why? I says, that's the total it came out with. He says, but it's 2 for 1. I say, yes, and the total is 200. He says, no, it's 2 for 1. I say, yes, the total comes out to this amount. He says, no, that isn't right. I say, yes it is. How will you be paying, cash or credit? The kid yells over at his mom and shouts the final price. Like a rhino, Karen comes stomping over. She says, how dare you charge us $200, you thief? It's free. I was like, no, the total comes to 200. The computer computed. She says, I will not give you 200. We are getting in for free. Give us our tickets now. I say, sorry, miss, but the 2 for 1s came to that price. Don't you know math? 2 for 1 means free. Free! She's shrieking at this point. My supervisor is coming over to save me, but I tell her not to, as I got this. Frankly, I was having too much fun with Karen. She says, listen here, dummy. No wonder you work this crappy job. You can't do math. It's free, and that's final. I say, miss, 2 for 1 is what it implies. You pay for 1 and you get 1 free. Not all of it is free, and you have 10 kids, so it's that amount. The Karen sees the supervisor behind me. She says, you there, fire this a-hole. He's trying to con the customer. He says, at a theme park? You do know where you are, right? She's flastered. She says, I'm getting in for free with or without the tickets. She grabs the kids and goes to the second entryway, where there are a ton of door people and real cops because the drunks come out during this time. 10 seconds later, she comes back to the booth since they denied her entry because she had no ticket. She goes to the next person next to me and gives them the coupons. Now my coworker, she is physically challenged. She's in a wheelchair. Karen sees this and is livid. She says, great, now I get the dang R word? The supervisor said, get the F out of my line. You do not call my worker that name. She says, oh, okay, I'm sorry. The coworker says, apology not accepted. Please leave before we call the police. She storms off. Unfortunately for this Karen, coupons don't usually stack. I mean, I usually wish coupons would stack. I mean, what if you just had 2 for 1 coupons and it made it 2 for 0? I'd be going everywhere for free. So this next one's from Petty Revenge called Yell at a Deaf Person, Enjoy Cleaning Up. So I was at a pub in Dublin the other day, catching up with some old friends for drinks. It was pretty packed and the place was obviously understaffed, which caused the service to be a little slow and the bartenders were running back and forth trying to serve and clean at the same time. It was like 10 of us together and we were all standing at the bar waiting to be served. A young woman stood at the bar alone waiting as well, but the bartender kept walking past her. We didn't pay much attention to her until the bartender came up asking what we wanted. A friend of mine pointed at the lady standing there and told him she had been there first. The bartender sighs really loudly and walks over to her. He says, what'll it be, miss? She points at her ear as to let him know she's deaf. He says, what will it be? She points at the beer she wants. He says, I don't understand you. What do you want? The woman, obviously getting distressed and embarrassed, shakes her head and reaches for her bag, picks up a pen and napkin and writes something down. He says, I don't have freaking time for this. He walks back to us and asks us what we want. My friend took the lead in ordering a single beer and some fries. We are all a bit pissed at what we just witnessed and walk away with to leave, asking her not to order. She gives us this follow my lead look and pays. She then walks to the deaf woman and talks with her for a bit. She speaks sign language. She then promptly walked to our table and asked us not to touch the beer. The fries show up and she asks us not to touch them either. She waits until the lady leaves. She packed her things and left without ordering, and then pours 1 beer over the fries, takes them over the bar and dumps them on the bar. Fries and beer all over the place. The bartender is obviously furious, but without skipping a beat, my friend looks at him and answers in sign language, I don't understand, what do you want? We all laughed walking out. Obviously the bartender didn't understand crap, but it felt like a good revenge. Oh, that's pretty cool. I hope they meet up with the deaf person and go help her out. Alright, this next one's from IDon'tWorkHereLady called Karen Get a Milkshake Hat. So background, I worked for a factory at the time, so uniform was whatever you wanted. Jeans and a hoodie were popular choices. The local retail park has a Mackie D's, which I grab a milkshake from on Friday after work, which I drink while doing my shopping. So I've been in Tesco's grabbing a few bits for dinner that night. I'm walking down one aisle and I see an elderly lady struggling to get something off the top shelf. Being the gentleman I am, I make the offer to get said item off the shelf. As I do this, I hear the throat-clearing sound that is the calling card of entitled parents and wild Karens the globe over. She says, "Excuse me, I need some..." I say, "I don't work here, sorry." "But I saw you helping that woman." "Yes, because she's too short and I could reach said items on the shelf." "Well, just help me, I need item." I say, "Honestly, I don't know, so please go find a member of the staff. I've got my own shopping to deal with." She says, "Oh, for flip's sake, just help me find what I need." The old lady says, "Just walk away, this won't end well for you." I say, "Don't worry, I can handle this. Enjoy the rest of your day, my dear. Take it easy." At this point, I forgot that I'd handed the lady my drink while I got the item off the shelf. The Karen says, "You can shut up, you old beesh." I say, "No need for that. Now bugger off before I get security." The old lady walks towards the Karen and just dumps my virtually full milkshake on her head with a slam dunk little hop. Karen at this point is screaming and going mental about how I'll lose my job. I didn't really care what she was saying, as this was before Reddit existed, so I had no real reason to pay attention. Both the old lady and I walk off laughing towards the tills, and she says to me, "People like that need a slap." Well, it definitely shut her up, and I'm sorry about your drink. I'll replace it. It's like, "No worries, love. I got my money's worth out of that drink anyway." That day's choice of drink was chocolate milkshake, so it looked like someone had taken a very liquid dump on her head. As we get to the tills, we part company, and I head towards my car to head home. I did stop to get another milkshake. I saw the Karen several times after that, out in town or at the Tesco's in question, and she never spoke to me. I pointed her out to everyone who knew the story when they were with me, and it always makes us chuckle. Man, that old lady did not hesitate to jump into this situation. She seemed like she'd be a cool person to invite to parties. Man, we got a lot of old lady stories today. So this one's called Old Lady Cusses Me Out and Gets Instant Karma. So I work in a very small store in a very small community, and I've worked there for over a year now. This particular store is surrounded in very small houses, usually occupied by the elderly and middle-aged single mothers with their multiple kids, and the younger customers are usually on financial aid of some kind. Now I love my job on most days. Usually everyone is friendly, and I have a hilarious and lovely group of regulars that I love to speak with. However, this time I had a night of almost no sleep, and had to serve all the usual jobless alcoholics and junkies in the area that morning, so I was a force to be reckoned with on this morning. I tried my best to be upbeat and friendly with everyone, because my mood had nothing to do with them whatsoever and they didn't deserve to see it. Until she walks in. Let's call her Old Lady. She's an elderly lady who comes in every second day, almost never speaks to the employees, and is usually not an issue for us. But this morning, she was an absolute nightmare for absolutely no reason. A bit of necessary detail for all of you. My store has a checkout policy where you only need to call for someone else to jump onto another register and service customers if there are more than 3 customers waiting. Otherwise, 1 is enough, and I have over 4 years of retail experience, so I'm lightning fast on the registers and can serve those 3 people within a minute. I'm serving 1 man in front of me, another man is behind him, and then the old lady is behind the second man. When the old lady joins the line of customers, I'm just finishing servicing the first man, and moving on to the second when I hear her complain to another customer. "They're supposed to ring for someone else," she says in a very grumpy voice. I couldn't hear what the other customer says, but he didn't sound all that bothered. I ignored her and continued to serve the man in front of me, while I hear her continue to complain about me in the background. I finish serving my customer, and the old lady walks up to me with a basket of items. I smile and say, "Good morning," and begin scanning her items. She leans forward on the counter and glares daggers at me. "You were supposed to call for someone else when there are people in line." She growls at me slowly, as if scolding a child. I feel my heart beginning to race, but I try my best to keep calm. I have an anxiety disorder, and I do not cope well with confrontation, especially when I've done nothing wrong, so I tend to get upset very easily. I explained the policy to her as politely as I could, that I do not have to call for another employee unless there are more than 3 people waiting. When she joined the line, there were only 2. She says, "I don't care, you're supposed to call." I say, "I just served you within 15 seconds of you joining the line." "You think you're all freaking clever in here, don't you?" She grumbles as she pulls out her purse to pay for her items. My eyes widen to the size of dinner plates, and I feel my heart beat faster. I feel the anger rising. Excuse me? I ask. And she shakes her head as if she didn't even hear me. Stupid biche, she grumbles as she places her card in the card reader. That was it. That crossed the line for me. I press the button on the screen to cancel the transaction, and she briefly freezes as the machine refuses her card. She looks up at me in anger and gives me a face that says, "What?" I say, "I'm not going to serve you if you're going to speak to me that way." I sound quite firm, but on the inside I'm angry and not in the mood to deal with disrespect. She just scoffs, pushes her basket of items towards me, which I take, and continues to cuss me out. She says, "You all think you're freaking clever in this shop," she yells at me, and I somehow manage to contain the tears. "Fine, take this stuff. Stupid freaking lady," she continues as she storms out of the shop. I turn to face the new line of customers that had formed during this confrontation, and I notice that everybody is looking at me in sympathy. I take a deep breath and try to steady my heart rate and say to the man in front of me, "You can't demand a service while simultaneously insulting those providing it for you." And then I take another breath before I begin to serve him. He smiles in response to what I said and attempts to pay for his items with his card. That's when I noticed. The old lady had left her bank card in the card reader. I let out a short laugh and say, "Karma," before placing it on the counter before me, making the customers laugh too. A few customers in line gave me a thumbs up, letting me know I was not in the wrong and that I did the right thing, but I was still extremely shaken up. My anxiety does not allow me steady emotions at this moment in time, and I did end up calling for my coworker to take over my register while I disappeared into the back of the store for a quick cry and a panic attack. My supervisor was supportive and brought me a glass of water, assuring me I did the right thing before leaving me alone for 10 minutes until I felt well enough to return to work. The old lady did not return to the store to retrieve her bank card until a few days later. She got confronted by my supervisor for cussing at members of staff, but she denied everything. My supervisor didn't believe her. Later told me it was because she had done this before, and I have not seen her since. Well, I guess the moral of today's stories is watch out for old ladies. They can be very unpredictable. And to finish off today's video, I've decided to just include an Ask Reddit thing in this video rather than making a separate video later. But this one's very relevant to these stories called Teachers of Reddit. When have you met the parents of a student and suddenly understood their behavior? I had a kid who would struggle to listen to anything or follow directions. When told what to do, he would break down. Eventually got him to start listening a little bit. I met his mom. She lets him do whatever he wants. Even writes on the walls in their house. She's too scared to tell her own child no. And now we see how entitled people are born. I worked as a teaching assistant at a school last year. One 8-year-old kid was incredibly competitive and would threaten other students who were in second or third place in competitions to stay in their place, so that he could win something and he would become incredibly red-faced and stressed. He would literally threaten his peers. He even threatened to kill other students over a competition of who could make this little robot move within taped lines on the floor. He would become completely irrational during competitions. It was crazy. Then his parents came in for school sports day and had a full meltdown when they didn't win the jokey parent race we do at the end of the day. They accused other parents of cheating because they had sports shoes on, whereas other parents just had come from work, so they just had to race barefoot. The dad went as far as demanding a rematch on a more level surface. Other parents just did a funny pose at the end of the starting line to make the kids laugh, ran the race, and freaking went home. I guess when your parents are children, you never grow out of being a child. So a small kid in grade 4 threatened another kid on the playground with a jackknife and said, "I'm gonna kill you." I called his mother in, who was quite appalled, and then warned us about his father. Exactly as she said, the man was unhinged. Within a few minutes, he was raging angrily and threatening the administrators. He was escorted off campus. Later, he threatened to come back, and the campus was locked down for the only time I remember in history, and police were alerted. That poor kid has no chance of growing up normal. His dad is a bomb with an extremely short fuse. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree is so very true. What kind of parent finds out from the school that his kid did something bad, and then they freak out at the school? Like, what did the school do? So there's a boy in my class who hits children and laughs about it, most often with small disturbing smile as the other kids freak out. We've told his parents repeatedly, and she stands there with her arms crossed looking at us like we should go die. Then she smiles at her son and asks in an overly cheerful voice if he wants to get ice cream or go to the movies or play mini-golf, essentially rewarding him for this behavior. It's so friggin' infuriating, but it makes sense because it's right there. And on to the final of just a few responses that I pulled together. Here's a lighter one. I had a student who always left their homework at school, always left their report at school, always left letters at school. I assumed it was all accidental, to avoid their parents knowing about school things. Then we had a parents' evening, and I had a lovely conversation with their mom. Their mom asked for a particular sheet of information and made some notes on it. Then she got up and left, and I realized she'd left the sheet behind on the desk, just like her child always did. I guess forgetfulness runs in the family. Well, those were all the responses that I wanted to pull from this question of the day. I kind of like just splitting a video into 2 parts, so what do you guys think about putting questions at the end of these? Most of them probably won't be this relevant to like entitled parents and such, but I kind of want to branch out this channel as much as possible without like abandoning the current fan base, because you know, it gets kind of boring doing the same thing every single day. So let me know what you guys think, and hopefully we can move this channel in a more exciting direction in the future. So thanks for watching.